Recently, I had cause to read a newspaper. You see, the old people kept newspapers, the newspapers of the 70s. In fact, 1973. It was April 10, 1973. And people kept the newspapers for us, the Baird children. You see, on April 10, 1973, our family tragedy splashed across the newspapers in Guyana. And there was a certain newspaper reporter called David Clement who wrote the story, and Freddie Johnson who took a picture. And in that newspaper is a picture of a child, a young girl. And beneath the picture says, 10-year-old Pauline is a picture of bewilderment as she clutches the school book which she found lying in the yard. That day, our house burned to the ground. That morning when I left for school, we were 7 children. But by afternoon, we were 5. I have since wept for that child, me. Looking at the one of only 2 pictures of myself as a child, I wondered sometimes what I could tell her if I can reach back in time and talk to her. And I would say to that little waif of a girl with the book clutched from the ashes and say, you've done well, you've come a long way, although you've come from there. Coming from there, I had many reasons to fail. I don't bet against village people. I have a message for the boys and girls of Buxton. Don't bet against yourself. I don't bet against you. I was once you. I don't have time for stories of deficit and reduction. I have stories about uplift and inspiration. So, today I have good news for you. This girl who plucked her book from the ashes now writes books. Yes, I write not to prove myself. I write to give an accounting of who we are, what we've done, where we've come from, who are our people, what did they do, what did they say. And I take my cue from Baba Eyusi Kwayana, who turned 95 this last week. And he says in his book some words that give me my inspiration. This man has known me my whole life, and his book is Buxton Friendship in Print and Memory. It says, and I quote, "It remains important to set down the names of men and women, farmers, workers, professionals, so that this work can be at some point, or can at some point serve as material for a real history. Write down the names of men, women, farmers, workers, professionals, people from there, so that this work can at some point serve as material for a real history." And that's my job. So I invite you to get this book, Navel String. I've written this book. It took me 2 years to do research for this book. Some fascinating things I found out. You know, I interviewed a woman named Mrs. Doreen Dover, my friend Colleen's mother. Behind her back we call her Hitler's wife, the same one. The one that's calling by my whole name, Pauline Baird, that one. I interviewed her, she lived in Canada. I asked her about the navel string. Said, "Miss Doreen, what do you do with the children's navel string?" And boy, oh boy, she told me a fantastic story. I wasn't sure I could write it in this book. What would people say? I toyed with that for months. And then I went to South Africa. And a woman in South Africa from a very affluent and influential family told me the same story Miss Doreen told me in Buxton. Read the book. I write the stories using a research framework that I've developed and coined. It's called Conversational Cultural Rhetorics. I proposed this framework and I won an award from the Conference of College Composition and Communication. So it's called the Scholars for the Dream Award. I tell the stories as a cultural bearer of my people in a conversational mode so that it can be delivered in an accessible format. So in this book, it's written in large print and it's conversations. This book is written for families and for children or anyone who wants to read it. It's very engaging. The history and the research I've found, I've packed it in here as conversation, delivered by an adult and some children. This book can be read as reader's theater or it can be performed. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. Now, the cover of this book shows the characters. Uncle Edwin, Marlon, Dee, Prince Fuarque, and who else? Waddington Wilbert, the water frog. Let me tell you how I got these characters. There are certain people who are my muses, or I channel them, so to speak. I think about them as I'm writing. And the first person that came to me was Edmund Fitzgerald Fredericks. He is Uncle Edwin in the book. Fredericks lived from 1875 to 1934. And Fredericks died, and he's buried in Buxton. He's a Buxtonian scholar. He was a lawyer on 3 continents, and we sing about him in Buxton. He proposed a law which is now in Guyana, and the law is 39.06, the Buxton Scholarship. Fredericks is the guy who gives all the intellectual parts of this book. Then I have Marlon. Marlon is a boy that is in the village. His name is Carl Phil. And Carl tells the story like a roots man. The 2 girls are my nieces. They hash out different parts of the book. And Waddington Wilbert, the water frog, is the quiz master in the book. Sorry about that. I tell these stories so that the stories can get to the children. So one day when they're looking for us, they can find us. Now, the cover of the book is done by a young student in South Africa named Ketso Motolong. And I have him do this cover because I want to support young entrepreneurs. The characters for this book, somebody said the characters, the eye is too big. Well, I don't care if the eye is too big. These characters were made by Jamal Sam of Intellect Storm. Rowan Willibus, the child of Wendy Zephyr Willibus and Royal Willibus, is the owner of that company. And Jamal Sam, I commissioned him to do the characters. That was his talent, and I was willing to pay for it because I want to encourage children from the village to earn and to be supported by what they do. So I ask of you to purchase these books for your families and friends. I am in talks with Faith, a nonprofit organization, to donate books to the Backpack Drive. So for each book that you buy, I will donate to the Backpack Drive when it starts. The books are on Kindle, on Amazon, and in paperback. You can get whichever you want. Navel String is $10, a paperback, and the Kindle is $3.99. I'm also in talks for writing some STEM books, science, technology, education, engineering, and math. I'm also include some arts books. Thank you for your support and for your cooperation. I just want to end with the Buxton Battle Song. I don't know if I could sing it properly. I've been trying, but we'll see. Okay, it goes like this. Thou wilt not slumber in the dust, Buxton, my own native land. Thy glorious name shall never rust, O Buxton, my own native land. Remember Fredericks, yes we must, the Buxton Scholarship, his trust. Now he slumbers in the dust in Buxton, my own native land. And now may every boy and girl in Buxton, my own native land, his heart and brain all day employ for Buxton, my own native land, to add to our illustrious line of sons and daughters who all time give of their best that we may shine for Buxton, my own native land. Thank you and walk good.